We see you enter the frame, you use your foot, push him down. Why did you do that?
I was aiming for a pivot point in his hip to seat him again, because I was concerned that, as you can see, Anthony's pushing on him on his upper body and it's having no effect. Major's relatively disengaged. He has one hand up, but doesn't appear to be, based on his body language, of leveraging any power into assisting that. He continually pulls away from her. And you can see he's got one hand back. So in my opinion, they were that he was out of control. He was not being effectively controlled by the two of them. Again, further, she's pushing on his chest. So if she were to push him back on his chest, he has the potential of falling and hitting his head against the cage or against the wall.
And what part of your foot did you use?
The flat part.
And how would you characterize your use of your leg in this context to see him on the bench?
To push him backwards, to push him. So like I demonstrated before, he almost kind of clamshells and his butt would be the first thing to hit the bench.
And why did you choose to use your foot rather than some other part of your body to accomplish that?
Well, one, I was concerned that he could spit, and I didn't want to put my face in close proximity to him. So I used the longest application of my body to apply that force. Had I gone in with hands, I would have put myself in a much more vulnerable position, because if I would have pushed on his chest, I would have been doing the same thing that they are, with the potential of pushing him backwards and hitting his head. If I went lower and pushed on his hip that way, he's in a much better position to headbutt me, reach down and bite me just by folding over. So I just used my foot as the longest extension of my body that I could use.
And where on his body do you use your foot?
His upper left thigh.
And after the application of force by your foot the first time, what were you expecting to happen?
I was hoping that he would stay seated.
So what do we see in this freeze frame here at 34:29?
So Majors moved away from him, leaving just Andely and I to deal with him. And you can see he's disengaged from trying to actively restrain him. So as he's rated to his feet again and focuses on me, and at this point in time, he's rearing his head back and making a noise I interpreted as him trying to effectuate a spit, and he's forming his mouth in a spitting fashion. So at this point in time, I'm perceiving that he's about to assault me with spit.
And so what do you do? What do you do in response?
It was just a quick reactionary use of my foot again to interrupt his spit and to try to create some distance, as well as you'll see that I turned my head away in the event that he was able to get the spit off. At least he's not going to hit me in the eyes.
We see your head turn slightly there.
Right.
What is the reason for that?
I don't want him to spit and hit me in the eyes. There's more orifices on the front of the face than there is on the side. I have one opening with an ear and I've got two nostrils, two eyes, and a mouth in the front.
What, if any, particular concern did you have about contracting COVID from this individual?
I was hyper focused of it because I had lost my father the year before to complications of COVID. That had he not contracted COVID, he'd still be alive today.
And what is it about the spit in your mind that enhanced the risk to you of contracting something like COVID rather than just, breathing in the air around?
Although we've all been made very, very aware of how COVID is transmitted and how other dangerous bodily fluids are transmitted, there's a higher concentration in spit than there is in just the misty air that somebody can exhale. And it's more directed, right? I mean, with spitting, you can direct it more purposefully than just breathing, and it's, just kind of dissipates in the atmosphere.
We see the second use of your foot. Where did you contact his body with your foot?
So that was on his lower left abdomen and his upper left thigh.
And in contrast to the first time that you used your foot, what did you do to be purposeful and how you directed that?
So this was just a quicker reaction because I had a half a second to respond to him spitting. So it was just a quicker reaction. But still using the flat of my foot in a pushing defensive posture.
What, if any, desire did you have to cause harm to Mr. Burrows?
Zero, none.
What is it in, can we see anything in your body posture to suggest that you were angry in this moment?
No,
What is it about your body posture that would demonstrate that you're not angry?
well, my fists aren't clenched. You know, I'm not angling in at him. No, I'm not lowering my head. It's hard to see facial expressions obviously from this, but yeah, those. And my feet are close together. I'm not in an overly offensive posture.
And then what did you do next?
So then, since he had tried to spit at me, that made the concern very real. So I then immediately left and went to my office where I knew that the spit hoods were. I knew we had a supply of spit hoods there. So I immediately left and got, my office is just a couple doors down the hallway from this room.
No, he gave me resign. He is so much trouble. He hit me resign. He's so much in trouble. No, get away from me, Tom, get away from me. I have respect, I don't quite do that, I didn't do that, and I did not. Ow, 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 ow.
When we hear Mr. Burrows saying, ow, 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 what is he complaining about?
It sounds like he's in pain from the handcuffs.
Did he make any complaint in the time at the sheriff's department about experiencing pain from your use of foot to seat him on the bench?
No, he did not.
I want to show you what I've marked as Exhibit C. What is Exhibit C?
It's a still image of him attempting to spit at me.
Where does that image derive from?
From the body cam video that we've seen. From Deputy Major's body cam video.
In this still image, where is your head directed?
It's lower, looking lower and left.
Why is it looking that way?
I'm afraid that he'll spit hit me in the face. So I started to move my, trying to turn away completely in the process of doing that.
I want to show you what I've marked as Exhibit H. What is Exhibit H?
This is a training record that I had taken to maintain my required number of hours. When I had departed the sheriff's office earlier, I did that prematurely and wasn't able to complete the required number of hours that I had to do. So I was granted an extension to be able to complete my hours after being elected as sheriff. So this is a course, looks like the course curriculum of some of the classes that I had taken and submitted towards that minimum requirement of hours.
How did you find this course today?
So this is a universal website that a lot of police agencies, including mine, use in the state of Vermont, that has a number of adopted courses that qualify for different training hours, if you will, and different course materials.
What, if any, accreditation is there for this course with respect to your Vermont training requirement?
So this, a lot of these courses are adopted and or approved by the Vermont State Police as an example, or the Criminal Justice Training Council as another. That could be from outside agencies. It could be stuff that's, it could be policies that are derived by the council themselves. As an example, the VSP Fair and Impartial Policing. There was a training on that. The Vermont Roadside Data Stop Collection Training is on that. The Criminal Justice Training Council model for fair and impartial policing policy is on this as well as some others.
And what is on page 2 of this document?
So page 2 is 2 screenshots from a knowledge check of one of the trainings that I took and was accepted by the council as part of that 30-hour requirement that I had.
And what is the training pertain to?
It's a 2-part series on situational use of force
And what is the purpose of the training?
to enhance my understanding or the reader's understanding of use of force tactics and applicable uses of those tactics.
Within this training, what what circumstance was there relative to being spit on by someone in custody?
The one that's shown.
And what specifically does it say?
So I'll read it. It says, according to the MARC curriculum guide, Officer Patrick has arrested a person who was verbally and physically out of control and is escorting the prisoner to his cruiser for transport. Officer Patrick hears the suspect make a gurgling noise in his throat as if he were going to spit on Officer Patrick. Officer Patrick strikes the suspect on the side of the head with an open hand technique to redirect the suspect's head. The use of force would most likely be ruled as reasonable response to prevent the suspect's actions. And because this was a part of a knowledge check, there were 2 options, true or false. And the correct answer is true, that this is an acceptable use of force.
Okay. What did you take away from this training?
That the action that I used is a lesser use of force than what is accepted in this training.
And this is still being taught to police officers in the Vermont?
That is correct.
For an elected sheriff, been in law enforcement since 1997, how many, police officers have you interacted with in your career?
Hundreds.
Is there in Vermont a police culture about being spit on?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I've heard that it's happened, certainly, but
What is the point of view, as you understand it, in law enforcement in Vermont among police officers about being spit on?
it's one of the most despicable acts possible.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions that I have.
You can move the admission of the two.
Yes, if I move toward CNH.
Any objection? C and H are admitted.
Kara, I know we are tight on time. Could I take a 2-minute bathroom break? That's gonna go for a little bit of time.
Take 5 minutes.
Thank you.
They're all good things.
Be back. People officers. Sorry. Robert, how often have you issued your All right, we'll reconvene.
Up and running. I share prisoner. My name is Kim McManus. I am the administrative prosecuting attorney today. I don't think we've ever met in person.
Nice to meet you.
Me too. Thank you for your patience today. I know this is not an easy day for anyone. Thank you. You reviewed your work history on direct. Is it fair to say that the majority of your law enforcement career, you were a part-time officer?
That is fair.
Meaning part-time hours, not just level 2.
That is fair.
And then it was just in the last 4 years that you became a full-time officer. So sorry. And part of that 4 years, you were initially in an administrative role, business manager role.
I've always had administrative capacity in the roles that I've played there, yes, but originally it was more administrative than it was anything else, yes.
And then you, approximately a year in, about 2019, you moved into a supervising role, as far as patrol officers.
Yeah, it was, so I first started there in February of 19, and so maybe about like June or July, August of that same year, I moved into more supervising others, yes.
Is there always a supervisor in the department at any given time?
Like on duty all the time?
Physically in the department all the time?
Not all the time. I mean, there's vacations and time off and things and around the clock, it's, there's never somebody that's in a supervisory capacity. Well, let me back up. So when you say supervisor, are you considering a certain rank or are you considering responsibilities?
Responsibility.
So there's always a senior person. So there's always somebody that we would deem as a supervisor or shift supervisor, and that being the highest ranking person on duty. Yes.
They don't need to be physically in the building. Is that correct?
They would be on duty.
You'd be on duty. They
Right,
could be
not
on call.
physically in the building, but they can be on duty, yeah. And then we would have senior members always on it, on-call basis, yes.
Okay. And on the day you went in on August 7th, you were not officially working that day, correct?
I was not, it wasn't a regular work day for me, correct?
Right, but you went in to do work.
Correct.
You went in to do paperwork.
Correct.
Testify to.
Yep.
And then you heard this call going on and it caused you concern, correct?
That's correct.
And so you then ordered a third officer to go respond to that call.
That is correct.
And so at this point, you're acting under your authority as a law enforcement officer, is that correct?
In what capacity?
And you're ordering,
More of a supervisor, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, had I not been a police officer, but been a supervisor, I would have made the same order, yes.
okay, but you are working.
Correct, yeah, we're always on duty, yes.
Okay, always on duty. And you became engaged in this, you helped with the paperwork when they came in, making decisions about charges, is that right?
Correct.
And when you first came in, you said that you didn't have anything to do with, Mr. Burrows being set up in the processing room.
Correct. When they originally brought him in and shackled him to the, put the leg shackles on him, I wasn't in the room for that.
Okay. Do you recall calling out to the deputy major that he needed to keep Burrows handcuffed?
We had a conversation about it, yes, about should he stay handcuffed. I believe that took place in the deputy room.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you told
Yeah,
him.
we had a conversation about it, yep, and that was when he was explaining how he had tried to punch him and he was assaulted and unpredictable, and I said, yeah, handcuffs and stay on it.
And then you really wanted to keep this process moving because you didn't want him sitting there for very long. Is that
Correct, and it was a busy day, we had multiple calls going on at the same time, yep.
So you helped out the deputies by calling the state's attorney and checking on conditions. Is that
And the
right?
judge, that's correct.
Yep, and the judge. So you don't have any issue at all with us stating that you were on duty and working at this point?
Well, again, we're never off duty, so
Okay,
Yeah.
so you were on duty.
always on duty, yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Doesn't matter what
Yep.
you're wearing, you're on
You
duty.
got it, yeah.
Let's go back to your training. You are a level 2 certified officer, is that correct?
Correct.
And you achieved that in 1997?
I did, and then I had to go back. I took the 5-year hiatus. I went back to the academy again for that level 2 school. And I don't remember exactly the dates on that, 2013,
13,
maybe, 14, somewhere in there.
So you hadn't worked in law enforcement for 5 years, that's why you had to go back
Correct.
and
Yeah,
get recertified.
yeah, my certification had lapsed, that's correct.
And do you recall, the use of force training at your level 2 basic training?
I don't remember that training, no.
But you had use of force training as part of your training at the academy?
I don't remember if we actually had that at the academy at the time. I believe that was something that was satisfied in the FTO process after post-basic.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember the FTO, or excuse me, I don't remember the academy incorporating at the level 2 level, use of force. After the mistake, I just don't remember that.
Before becoming fully certified as a level 2 officer, so after your FTO that you had to do again, would you have received your use of force training?
Yes, I would.
And then you mentioned on direct that there's an annual requirement for use of force.
That's
Is that correct? And that's 4 hours a year.
Correct.
And that 4 hours has to be council provided use of force training. So
Correct.
it has to be a council training.
That's not correct. So it has to be a recognized, certified training, use of force training instructor that will met the requirements that the academy has, but it doesn't have to be through the academy per se.
But it needs to be a certified
Correct.
instructor of the council
Correct.
who provides that use of force training. And that could be in person or online.
Has to be in person.
Has to
That
be
4 hours has to be in person. That's correct.
with a certified council instructor.
Right.
Do you recall when the statewide use of force policy that we've been talking about today, when that rolled out?
I do, yes.
And then 2021, is that correct?
That sounds correct.
And there was a training that was sent out by the certified instructors about the new policy. Is that correct?
I don't remember that, but I'm sure that there was. I would think that there would be.
There was a mandate that every officer had to do that training.
Sure. I don't remember that, but yes, I'm sure that there was. The council is usually pretty diligent about that, yes.
And so if there was a mandated training, your testimony earlier is that you've done all the mandated training.
That's correct.
So you've been trained on the statewide use of force policy.
That is correct.
I have a few questions about the training you mentioned here. When did you take this training?
I'm sorry, which one are you referring?
You handed in
You're talking about Exhibit H?
Exhibit 8.
Yep. So this would have been taken, between my being elected and I don't remember exactly what the final day was. It would have been sometime in March, I think, that I had to fulfill the outstanding hours.
Okay, so sometime between November of 2022 and March of 2023. It looks like an online.
That's correct, yeah, through the JPMA website, correct.
Okay. And on your direct, I believe you said that this was, did you say accepted by the council?
Yes, that's correct.
But you did not use this as your 4 hours of training?
That is correct. It didn't count as the 4 hour use of force training. This counted as the supplementary or, well, I'll say a la carte, but the supplementary training that would require. So we still have to maintain that, have to do that 30 hours, and it can be in a number of different prescribed disciplines.
Correct, and so outside of those mandated hours, you just report your hours to the council. You don't provide the work that was done in that training.
We provide the form that they use, I don't have it in front of me to tell you, but it says what the course is, how many hours, how it took the course, whether it was online, was it academy approved, was it department approved, department sponsored, and then what those hours are, and then, again, the course pay.
And now you're saying that this course was on a list of council approved courses?
That's correct.
And where is that?
It would have been submitted to the council with my training records.
You submitted this as your training, like you said it was on a list.
So yeah, so then you're seeing this doesn't have the entire list, but in Exhibit H, there are a list of courses that come up when we select the state of Vermont courses,
Okay. Through what website?
JPMA.
That stands for what?
Anderson would know better than me. What's JPMA?
You can't answer right now.
I can't remember.
Sorry.
It's a website that we've used for years and years and years. Yeah.
But is your testimony that somewhere on the Vermont Criminal Justice Council information that this program is an approved program?
I'm not sure where exactly it is. I know that historically, this is a website that we have been able to use to take these online trainings and use those as satisfactory requirements for our 30-hour requirement.
If we can just look at this example, you read
Yep.
it out on your direct. There's a few big differences, between the scenario that we've chatted about today and the scenario presented in this question. In this scenario, the person is not handcuffed, is that correct?
It says in custody, so I think it's common vernacular to state that that person could potentially be in handcuffs if they're in custody. I don't know another way of describing custody.
there's a picture with the question that shows the person being led away. And it looks like the officer's holding an arm
Yep.
of the person. So that person is being held, but there's no, his hands are not cuffed behind his back, correct?
In this picture, that's correct. That's correct.
And the picture goes with the question.
I don't know that it does, because also too, you'll see that the people are wearing face shields as well, so it doesn't seem like this picture necessarily goes with that scenario.
So the exhibit that you submitted, you're stating that you're not sure if the visual image goes with the question.
That's correct.
In the picture that you're not sure whether it goes with the question or not, we can't see whether there's any shackles on him. Is that correct?
And we don't know, is that the suspect, is that a different suspect, which one of them is Officer Patrick, right? There's lots of things that we don't know
Right.
specifically about that picture.
Yes, my question was, can we tell whether he's shackled at all? in this
I
picture?
can't see that he has, his left arm looks to be that there is no shackle on it, correct?
Okay, so in this image, we just see that the officers are holding his arms.
Correct.
So he's
Well,
not
he's holding the left arm, I can't see the right arm, but holding the left arm, yep.
correct in this picture. Okay, thank you. When you, I'm gonna need the video of this ready and waiting room that I won't need it for a second, but if you don't mind setting it up. Thank you. That's fine. Just gonna bring it back to approximately where Mr. Burrows falls. Oh, no, sorry. Sorry. Just jumping. Okay. I'm gonna pause it there for a second. It's our understanding from everyone that you, noticed Mr. Burrows fall down from the deputy's room. Is that
I
correct?
heard him fall, and then I noticed he was lying down.
And the deputies went in to assist him and you followed, is that correct?
Correct,
And you were standing at the doorway.
right,
And so you were watching the deputies, work with him to get him to stand up, is that correct?
that's correct.
And at that point in time, Mr. Burrows was slow but compliant.
Are you asking me?
Yes. I'm
Yes,
asking you.
yes.
Okay. And so approximately how long were you watching from the doorway?
The entire time.
Okay, the entire time.
The entire time. So from the time that they enter the room, I followed in right behind them until the time that until I walk out. You can see me kind of reframe, I loiter for another minute, and then we kind of all walk back within a couple of seconds of each other, walk out of the room.
Okay, so when you called, did you call AmCare? When he asked, will somebody call AmCare? Were you standing there? and
I
on
went and
the phone?
grabbed the radio. Yep.
Okay.
Called it on the radio.
You left for a second or two to grab the radio
Yep.
and then came back. Okay. Now, takes them, takes them about a minute or so, to get him to stand up and sit back down. Does that seem like a fair assessment? We can play it as well, but,
Yeah, sure, that sounds about
I mean,
right.
I don't
Watched
know.
it about 9 times today, so I would say it's probably about a minute.
okay. Would you just agree that it takes about a minute to get him up, or would you want to watch it, see?
No, I would agree with about a minute.
Okay, about a minute. to stand him up. And then he's sitting down. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then he stands up and takes a step towards Deputy Major. Is that right?
Correct.
At that point, when he's standing up, how much room does he have to work with the shackles that are on him?
If you walk forward, that's your fear shots.
Knowing the shackles that are placed on him, approximately how far can he step forward?
I would estimate probably another 12 inches.
So 12 inches from where he's standing right now.
Yep,
And right now he's standing with the bench, basically, behind, it looks like it's behind his leg. Maybe there's an inch or so. Is that correct?
I don't know exactly how close he is, it's hard to tell, but
But approximately he is about a 1 foot radius in every direction to step with those shackles. Is that correct?
well, 1 foot, yeah, radius away from the bench, yes.
Away from the bench. Okay. When you were standing in the doorway earlier, watching them work with Mr. Burrows to stand him back up, did you ever suggest that someone get a spit hood or you go get a spit hood?
I did not.
Earlier when you had heard about the altercation and that he had spit on Mr. Burrows, did you ever direct anyone to have a spit hood brought up?
I did not.
Could you mean if he spit on the deputy?
No, I asked if he, when he had did he ask for a spit hood to be nearby?
Says to spit on barrels. Says spit on barrels.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. End of the day. When you'd heard about him spitting on Deputy Major, at any point when you were back in the processing room, did you get a spit hood ready?
I did not.
Okay.
Not until after he tried to spit at me.
Okay. In your direct testimony, you said that the officers were losing control of the situation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. At this moment in time, with Deputy Andelay's hands on him and Deputy Major talking to him, have they lost control at this point?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Down for shuffling. Yes, sir.
Sorry, there's a little delay there. Prior to Deputy Major turning, when they're both looking at him and Deputy Major has his arm out and Deputy Andelay has her arms on him and he's moving in that 1 foot radius, have the deputies lost control of him at that point?
Yes, they have.
You believe that's the moment
I think that's the moment that they lost control, yes.
that they lost control? And so that moment, how quickly do you estimate you put your foot on Mr. Burrows?
From this particular moment, it was probably a couple of seconds.
Yes. Did you provide Mr. Burrows with any warning that you're going to put force upon
I
him?
did not.
Did you not believe that there was a moment to provide that warning since you had two deputies standing next to him?
I did not. And he had already non-complied with their multiple requests. So in my estimation, my evaluation of that scenario was that verbal commands, we were beyond verbal commands at this time. They had tried multiple times to use verbal commands. They had hands on, none of those techniques were working. He was still continuing to pull away from Annalee. He was still continuing to advance towards Matron.
You're saying he was failing to comply, within the 3 to 4 seconds that they were telling him to sit down, that he.
So that particular, the failure to comply was a lot more than 2 seconds. You're
Well, I'm
asking
asking
from the
about-
point that they lost control to the point that I intervened was a few seconds, correct?
Yes, that's specifically my question. This moment where you believe you lost control, about 2 to 3 seconds of commands before you interceded. Is that correct?
We could watch again. I don't remember what they had for commands in the 2 seconds between when I felt that they lost control until the time I intervened.
Okay.
But they were certainly pushing, as you can see, to try to get him to cease continuing to advance on Major's position.
Okay. So is it fair to say within 3 seconds, 3 to 4 seconds of them trying to have him comply, you interceded with your first force?
No, they had been trying to get him to comply for a half a minute.
From when they lost control?
From when they lost control, it was a couple of seconds, but you need to look at the totality of it. The amount of time that they were trying to assert their control of the situation to the point that they lost control of more than a few seconds.
Okay, so maybe it was 10, 15 seconds.
Maybe.
And you were aware that Mr. Burrows was showing signs of intoxication, is that correct?
I believe that he was showing signs of intoxication, correct?
And you're aware from Vermont state-wide use of force policy that you need to factor in alcohol impairment when considering whether to use force, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you need to consider alcohol impairment because someone who's impaired may have trouble responding to orders, is that correct?
Some do have a challenge with stronger orders, correct?
Right, so you need to factor
It's a
that.
continuum, right? The more intoxicated they are, the more challenging it is to get them to comply to verbal command. That's my experience, yes.
Right, and often it's that they're slower to respond, is that
Sure,
correct?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, they need more processing time to understand what's being asked of them, is that correct?
I agree that that is a premise, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
This moment where you believe that they've lost control, was Mr. Burrows in danger of escaping the processing room at this point?
He was not in danger of escaping.
Is he in danger of fleeing the room in any way?
No,
Was he at this point in time, in the midst of committing a crime right at this moment?
not committing a crime, no.
So, and before your first force upon him, there was no crime that you needed to restrain him for, is that correct?
Correct. He was only actively resisting. Correct.
Now, earlier in the deputy room, the deputies had reviewed with you what had occurred at the house, is that correct?
That's correct.
In detail that they had to use force.
Correct.
And you watched Deputy Andelay's video of the use of force, is
I
that
did not.
correct?
Wasn't available, did not.
You wrote a 6-page written statement, is that correct, about this time?
I did.
And when did you write that statement?
Would have been on or around the 18th. On or before, I should say.
And then does this appear to be your statement?
It appears to be, yes.
Okay, I'm afraid there's no page numbers there. But if you could look at the second full paragraph. Do you need a copy? Yep. Copies are.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is this marked as next?
Yes, this is marked as the police exhibit number 5. So we're on physically the 3rd page and the second paragraph second full paragraph, it starts with, I returned to my office. You see that?
Yes, I do.
If you could,
I'm sorry, where are you at? Is this one, this paragraph?
I returned to my
Yes.
office. Yep, so we're in the right spot. Great. Um. Okay, could you read the second sentence there?
I was summoned back to the deputy room where Deputy Major was showing me body cam video of the interior of the subject's house, specifically the portion where the subject was demonstrating severe.
Read a little more slowly, please.
I was then summoned to the deputy room where Deputy Major was showing me body cam video of the interior of the subject's house, specifically the portion where the subject was demonstrating severe mood swings.
Okay, and then. Want to take a moment just to, you don't have to read it all out loud, but it can take a moment just to refresh your memory of what you wrote about what you watched there. And let us know when you're done.
Okay.
Okay, having reread the report that you wrote, did you watch the video of the use of force that was used at the mother's house in the deputy room that day?
So I think your original question was that I watched Andalu's body cam. I don't recall it being Andalu's body cam, but I would believe this is correct, that I did watch somebody's body cam of the interior of the house.
Okay, because Deputy Major's body cam was in the processing room, is that correct?
So we have multiple cameras. I don't know if it was the same camera that he had used throughout the consistency of the, I don't really know that for sure. So sometimes what we'll do is that when we deal with an incident, we'll take the body cam that we have, we'll put it on the dock, we'll grab another one and use that for the processing room. So that can be recorded while we're doing that. So I'm just not sure. I don't know the sequence of which camera was used for what.
Okay. So the confusion was whose body camera there, but you agree that you watched the use of force at Mr. Burrow's mother's house. Is that correct?
That's correct. Somebody's camera. Yes.
Yes. And that you had seen that video before Mr. Burrows fell down. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay. And in that video, you saw that Deputy Major and Deputy Angele restrained Mr. Burrows and took him to the ground. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in that video, there was no sign that they had any struggle with going through that process. Is that correct?
That's incorrect. They did struggle with him to put handcuffs on.
They got him into handcuffs in about 5 seconds. You consider that a struggle?
Well, how long do you consider it to take?
I'm asking you.
Yeah. So I could see them wrestling with him to do it. He didn't just, didn't just go limp and allow us to just handcuff him quickly. Usually it can take a couple of seconds. If you get somebody on the ground, it can take a couple of seconds. They were wrestling with him a little bit to get him in handcuffs from what I remember.
So they got him to the ground quickly and then it
Yes.
took a few seconds to put him into handcuffs. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know exactly how many seconds it took them, but yes.
Okay, but they were able to put him to the ground quickly and gain control of the situation.
Correct.
And the two of them were able to do that. You had proof of that, just
Correct. They were able
Moments
to,
before.
to avoid, Major was able to avoid getting struck and they were able to take him to the ground and handcuff him. That's correct.
okay. And they did that in an environment far less controlled than what we're looking at here.
Really by controlled.
Well, Burroughs was not in any sort of restraints at his mother's house before being arrested, correct?
That's correct.
And it was a personal home with other people around, so that would be less controlled than this environment, correct?
Again, I'm not trying to debate it with you. I just don't know what you meant by control. Like, was there more obstacles for them to navigate? Was there less room? I'm not sure what you're getting at. Yeah.
Is it fair to say if you watch the video that there's less distractions for the officers, less visual distractions here in this room compared to the mother's house?
That's correct. I would agree with that. Yes.
And Mr. Burroughs was in the processing room, restrained at 4 points. Is that correct?
Both his legs were chained and his handcuffed behind his back. Correct.
Correct. And that was not the case at the mother's home when they needed to use force on him. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, he was not shackled at that time.
Okay. So it's fair to say that that is a more complicated environment than this current environment, just in terms of his restraint.
In terms of other variables, like other members in the house and the potential for other people to intercede or impede us or having weapons, yes, it's a more hostile environment in a house than it is in that holding cell, in that holding area, yes.
Okay, thank you. And in that less controlled environment, just to be clear, they were able to control him. Is that correct?
That's not correct, because he still kicked at Major and he still kicked at Matthew and still spit on Major, so
Were they able to bring him down to the ground and handcuff him
yes,
and hold him there?
yes.
Okay. And then when they moved him to the car and he was standing up, he acted out again, is what you're saying?
From what I remember, he tried kicking before he was led out of the house. He tried kicking Matthew before they left the house.
Okay.
Had he been shackled, he wouldn't have been able to kick him.
Perfect. I don't need the video right now, but is it easier time-wise to, I don't want to leave it up there if it's bothering you, Attorney Kaplan, or mine. Okay, I just didn't want
I see it in my dreams.
to.
From the flow.
Um. On direct, you said that you were hyper-focused about COVID at this time.
That's
Is
correct.
that correct? And my apologies for the passing of your father. That happened in 2021, is that correct?
That's correct.
So you made numerous statements that you were concerned about the potential for COVID.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. And including two that I had requested Deputy Major fill out a first report of injury report.
Because
I
you
was
see,
concerned for him. So,
yes, because you see spitting as an injury. Is that correct?
correct.
You believe that spitting is a physical injury.
It's an assaultive, yeah, potentially assault. It's an assaultive, potentially injury. Yes,
Potentially, if,
correct.
but only if someone has an illness, is it an actual injury?
What do you mean by injury?
Well, I mean, a physical injury, a bodily injury,
So I'm not an expert on spit or trajectories of spit or speed of spit. You know, I don't know if the spitting forcefully can damage the cornea of the eye. I'm not sure. I'm aware that spit can contain a number of very dangerous fluids. And somebody could be susceptible to contracting those diseases like COVID, like Hep C, like a lot of other things.
right, so the concern with spitting is the disease transmission, is that correct?
That's one of the concerns, yes.
That was your primary concern this day.
I wouldn't say primary, it's one of them. It was one of the concerns that I had, yes, was the disease contraction potential,
Okay,
particularly as it relates to COVID.
You weren't thinking your example of maybe that you could have a physical injury to your eye from spit,
I was thinking that as well, sure.
that your eye could be physically injured
Yeah.
from what?
Yeah.
Remember you were marking that sorry, let me back up. Due to your concern, this public health concern, potential transmission of COVID, did you take any extra trainings, during that time period regarding disease transmission?
We had some, I don't remember exactly the timeline of it, but certainly when COVID came out, there were a number of trainings that the entire office took about, you know, disease protection, transmission prevention, mask donning, protocols like that, mask wearing, hand sanitizing, hand washing. There were a number of trainings that were put out by the CDC and others.
And in that training, you likely reviewed that to contract an illness, you need to ingest in some way the communicable disease.
I don't know the specifics on how certain diseases enter the body, no.
Okay. Is it fair to say that, You're not aware of any illness that goes through the pores of the skin.
I'm not aware of any illness that goes to the pores of the skin, right?
Generally, we're concerned about it going in our mouth.
Yeah, mucus.
That's correct.
Yep, eyes,
That's
nose,
eyes,
ears.
right.
Yep,
It has to somehow go into the body. So the actual spit landing on one's skin.
unless that's transferred from your cheek to your mouth. You know, you rub your mouth, you rub your eyes, things like that, where it could go from the surface of the skin and make its way first by your contact. Certainly, that's a possibility too, right?
Right, and you have training on that as far as how to remove spit and then wash your hands, is that correct?
Well, I've never been trained on what to do if you spit on that.
Okay. Have you, outside of law enforcement, do you understand that if you have to touch something that's possibly touched another
I'm
disease,
aware of proper hygiene.
washing your hands will help? Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, during this time period, they were helping Mr. Burrows, he's talking and shouting, is that correct?
During the interaction here?
Yes, just beforehand,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when he stands up and he's yelling at deputy mayors. And you're aware that shouting spreads saliva droplets, correct?
Could potentially, yes.
Potentially.
Yeah. Is that breathing could, sure. Yeah,
Yep.
you're in close proximity, yeah.
Yep. So the deputies working with him, getting him from the floor, we're all in that close proximity.
Yep.
Or potentially inhaling droplets, is that correct?
That's potentially, I think, for me.
Which is just as dangerous as, ingesting a piece of spit.
Not an expert on it, so I can't comment on that.
Okay.
Not a communicable diseases expert, so I'm not sure about that.
It's fair. Are you aware of any? Sorry, strike that. At this time in August 2022, there was, do you recall whether there was a statewide mandate for masks?
I don't believe that there was one, in fact, this time.
There was, I'm presuming there was no mandate, at the department to wear masks.
Correct, not at this time.
Because of your concern about COVID and knowing that he had spit earlier, at Deputy Major and in the vehicle, did you consider having anyone put on masks
I did
to
not.
continue the interaction?
I did not.
So your concern was not that heightened that you thought people should put on personal protective gear?
Correct, it was, we did have a personal protective gear protocol related to people that sped us, yes.
Okay, but you understand from any trainings that you did during that time that masks are the simplest way to prevent transmission between individuals,
For COVID, yes.
which was your primary concern then?
Was the, yeah, the climate disease at the time, yeah.
Yes.
You know,
I think you said on direct that previous to this day, you've never had anyone spit on you, is that correct? So you've never had to use somebody's shirt to cover their head to prevent them from spitting on you?
that's correct, that's right.
Or put a towel over their head, or, you know, use a baseball hat to cover
Never
their
have.
face so they couldn't spit at you. So
Right.
you never had those scenarios
Never
presented
had-
to you.
Not me personally. That's what happened.
Would you agree that any of those methods would prevent someone's spit, not from them spitting, but from it contacting other people?
I'm not sure about all the examples that you used. The only method that I know is an approved spit hood that's specifically designed to capture spitting and droplets from the mouth, so I'm not sure. You know, like a shirt, I don't know how dense a shirt is, it's penetrate the fibers, I don't know, I couldn't answer that.
Okay. Would it make sense that it would create a barrier between the person spitting? And not, we won't get into how much of a barrier, but that it is a, you could put a physical barrier
Potentially,
between
sure,
the spitter and the folks that you're concerned about.
potentially, sure,
Right, and that's in essence what the spit hood does, correct?
correct. Yeah, it's a defined barrier, yep.
And looking at when you decided to go get the spit hood, maybe 20, 25 seconds to go get the spit hood. Does that sound about
I
right?
think a lot less than that,
Okay, faster than that.
correct?
Where was the spit hood located?
My office.
On the desk?
Yeah, so I was, one of the duties I had was supplies, so I just happened to have them. You know, I'm the one that purchased them for the department and handed them out to everybody, and so I kept the inventory in my office.
Okay, so those were readily available in your office.
Correct.
And you knew earlier when you were standing at the door, you were aware of where those were in the office.
I didn't have the conscious thought of where they were at the time.
But the minute you thought, I want to get a spit hood, you knew exactly where to
Registered
go.
at me, then I certainly remember that we had a supply in my office, yeah.
And you were able to easily access.
That's correct.
Excuse me. I believe I asked you earlier, but it's late, so I just want to make sure going through everything. As you entered the room here to intervene,
I was already in the room.
I apologize, when you walked past the doorway,
Yeah, my bench beyond the doorway, yeah.
beyond the doorway, prior to putting your foot on him to force him back, your testimony is that you did not say anything to him, is that correct?
Did I did not say anything to him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that I said anything.
Okay, that you did not give him a warning that if you don't sit down, I'm gonna physically sit you down.
Correct. Yeah. Much like if we're ever in a situation where I have to shoot somebody, we don't give out warning shots ahead of time. Sometimes there's not time for the warnings.
And that'll be a matter for the council to debate, whether there was time or not to give a warning. So you believe there was no time for a warning, just to be clear.
I believe that a warning was not going to be effective, correct? A warning would have been in the same vein as the commands that had already been issued multiple times by the two deputies there on the screen.
And you don't think it would have made any difference that a different third person was giving a warning?
Correct.
Somebody
I
new?
don't believe that that would have added value to the situation.
But we don't know, because you did not give a warning.
I did not even want.
There's been a lot of talk today about how to describe your emotions. So the first one you describe as you lifted your foot and pushed it against him and pushed him back. Is that correct?
I pushed it on a pivot point on his upper thigh.
And your second use of force, is that the same motion?
It was still using the flat of my foot, but this one was more of a trying to create, one, to interrupt his spit. So to interrupt his ability to continue on with the assaultive action and to create distance. So it's a very defensive maneuver.
And so that defensive maneuver sometimes is called a distractionary kick. Is that correct?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about a direct distractionary kick is.
On this day, when you had a quiet moment, you wrote a use of force report. Is that correct?
I did.
And this is the report that goes into the case file.
Correct. It's in the top one.
Goes into that one. In this report, you wrote for the second kick, at this time, I delivered a discretionary front kick to Burroughs abdomen area.
A discretionary?
Distractionary, but the term I used earlier that you said you did not
Distractionary.
recognize. You use that term in your report.
See?
Do you recall that? This is marked.
I don't recall, but.
Exhibit 6. You just find you a clean copy that manifests here. It's in front of me. And there's a larger paragraph. Right about there.
Okay.
Take a look at that. You need a copy?
This is exhibit 6.
Excuse me.
This is their way of showing, this is my, yes, this is my,
Yes, thank you, the front cover page. Says Brismore, correct? So these would have been the words that you typed that day. Is that correct?
yes, this is, these were the, if I, perhaps, give me 1 second. I concur that those are the words that I use.
Okay, so now you can hold on to it, just in case you have to reference them. Reading that now, does that bring back any recollection of why you refer to that as a distractionary?
It doesn't, but it certainly could be, categorized as a distraction. A distractionary effort. I don't really remember using those words, but it certainly could be a distractionary effort, yeah.
Isn't it true that there's some older training models not used anymore that teach what are called distractionary kicks?
I'm not sure what other models you're referring.
Other use of force training prior to our statewide use of force.
I'm aware that there's something called the distractionary blow, a strike. There could be a closed hand punch.
And the distraction is meant to cause pain, to stun someone, is that correct? So that
To
they
divert their
stop.
attention, correct, to distract them.
Yeah.
Yep. So the most probably universal application is somebody that's has their hands underneath them and they're refusing to give them out, but you might deliver some body strikes or arm strikes to get them to comply, correct?
Right, and the body strike's meant to stun them, to surprise them, right?
Yes, I'm not a use force expert, so I don't know what the exact verbiage is. I just know that I've never used them, but I've witnessed them to be delivered in the past, yes.
Um,
And they're, yeah, to disrupt the person's thought process or to disrupt the person's actions, yeah.
okay. On the front of this exhibit, this sort of the cover page, and on the first initial boxes that you need to fill out for your use of force report. Under technique used, you put kick front, is that correct?
Where are you looking at?
It is few rows down, officer action. 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 rows down.
Okay.
Is that correct? You typed in kick front,
I don't believe I typed it in, I think this is the only drop down that was
an
applicable.
option,
The only one that was applicable to the action that I used, yeah,
and then you put the number 2, is that correct?
correct.
You will be admitting State's Exhibit 6. Use of force report?
What about exhibit 5?
Yes, we would like to admit that.
Just for clarification, exhibit 6 is a statement that was prepared, created the incident in question, and exhibit 5 was prepared some week or weeks after the incident.
Sometime after the incident, correct?
Intersection. Exhibits 5 and 6 are needed.
Just to be clear, Sheriff, your initial concern before getting involved was not about spitting. It was about a threat to the nature, correct?
To both of them, yes, that he was in proximity to hurt them, fall, hurt himself. Yeah.
Some sort of physical threat,
Yeah.
correct?
Correct.
And it wasn't until after you pushed him down with your foot and he stood back up that you perceived that you might be getting ready to spit, is that correct? And you never did spit on you, is that correct?
He never did spit on me, correct?
And you never spit on anyone in the room when you were in there with me, is that correct?
That is correct. I'm not aware of him spitting on anybody after that. Yeah, I spit it on, so he was capable of that.
That's all I.
Sure. Mrs. McManus suggested to you that it was only 10 or 15 seconds that Mr. Burrows was really out of the control of Deputy Angeline and Deputy Major. And in the law enforcement context, when dealing with a non-compliant person, how long is 10 or 15 seconds?
A long time,
What could happen in 10 or 15 seconds?
a number of things, a number of assaults, a number of injuries could take place in that amount of time.
How long does a headbutt take?
Could take less than a second.
Ms. McManus was asking you about, lifting a shirt up over someone's head when you're concerned that there might be a spitter. What was the availability with, Mr. Burrows to use his shirt?
No, there was none, because he's shirtless.
And what was the ultimate outcome in terms of Mr. Burrows' compliance from your intervention here?
He became compliant.
I think those are all the questions that I have.
Any requests? Thank Catherine, you're suggesting you're a use of force expert on the now, and you envision your direct testimony taking about an hour.
Probably.
Cross-exam, defense expert, and we take, I know you never know for sure, but roughly take how long?
If the direct is an hour, I'd imagine at least 45 minutes. If I didn't see what time we just started on this last one, but
And I believe you said earlier that you were reserving the right to call Mr. Daigle that in the rebuttal case hadn't made that decision.
based on the testimony that we've heard so far, I will be calling him back. And presuming with the expert's testimony, I'll have some additional questions for this committee. So I think the presumption should be that he will be called.
So is it fair to estimate that before we would even get to summations, let alone deliberation by the council, that we're without a dinner break, we're 2 hours from even the beginning of deliberation?
At least.
At least. That was great.
Just a second. In. Right. So I'm gonna want to talk to the council, but first question is, if we were to attempt to reconvene tomorrow, we ask council whether
I'm scheduled to finish jury in Chicken County, they go tomorrow.
So fair to say, might be available in the afternoon here, but maybe not.
Very likely.
What about later this week?
So Thursday, I have court appearances in 2 different counties at 8:30 in the morning. Status conferences at 1, a motion hearing at 2. Friday morning, I have a court hearing, I think someone wants to cover that.
So a possibility of reconvening on Friday,
We did the morning, I didn't think that one,
but not the afternoon.
it'll be problematic. When we started at 9 again. Done, probably, then we'll go into this.
With witnesses. You're available?
I can make myself available. I don't have my calendar right in front of me. I don't think I have anything scheduled for Friday. Tomorrow morning I'm available, but that's out. Thursday, I have some meetings, but this would take precedence.
Thursday, early
That was
staff
out.
available,
Sorry.
so Friday.
So Friday, I could be
Good
available.
work.
Yeah.
Let me first ask the members of the council who are present here. Any of you have a conflict that we couldn't make it on Friday, reconvening at 9?
I can try.
One yes, 3 nods, yes.
I can Madam Chair, we don't.
Yes.
I'm doctor's appointment at 8, so I should work, but I'm also pulling out of state at that point. So I can make the morning work. But the plan the whole day.
Right. Now, let's have the council members put their cameras on. And, the folks who are here, 6 of us can make at least the morning on Friday. And, so let me ask how many of the council members able to participate that is not on the professional regulation subcommittee would be available if we were to reconvene Friday morning at 9 o'clock. Who knows that they would not be able to do so, given your current schedule?
Mr. Chair, it depends on how long we expect to go.
One predicts at one's peril, but.
I am not available Friday.
I'm only available for the first hour and a half. Anything after 10:30, I can't do.
So we have one definitely not available Friday. We have another available only for an hour and a half. Third, not available after noon. The rough estimate is that the defense expert witness will take an hour of direct, close to an hour of cross-examination, possible redirect, and an intention, and assuming the defense then rests, to call Daigle back as part of a rebuttal case. Then summations, which might be limited to 10 minutes apiece, and then deliberations by the council. Sounds to me like we're not going to be able to reconvene this Friday and be confident that we have a quorum. And even if we had a quorum, at least a couple of members of the council who will spend all day today hearing evidence will not be in a position to be here for the remainder, let alone to deliberate. My sense is that we should attempt to find a mutually convenient time, not Thanksgiving week, but the week after Thanksgiving. And I know that I would not be able to do before Wednesday of that week after, or excuse me, Thursday of that week after Thanksgiving. So my sense is that we just recess for now, or reconvene at a date that we find either late in the week after Thanksgiving or the following week, so that we can reconvene, hear the remainder of the evidence, deliberate, and make a decision. Any objections to that plan? Then I think what we'll do is, thank you all much for the amount of time you put in today. And Lindsay will be communicating with the council to find a convenient date late the week after Thanksgiving or the following week. And let's do our level best to get it in that time frame. And as soon as we know where the council is at, we will again check with Attorney Kaplan, Attorney McManus to make sure other witnesses can be available, convenient for them. And we will reconvene at that time, and we'll try to come up with that date in the next day or two, so that we can get it on our calendars for what is a busy season. So unless there's any objection, I would move that we adjourn for today's meeting and recess until the date to be determined to continue the contested hearing involving the reverse form matter. All in favor, please say aye. Raise a hand.
Aye.
Hi.
Anyone stay for a few more hours? Assuming the motion passes and we're in recess. Thanks all very much. Thank you, Lindsay.